Hello everyone, Rewindern here. Today we'll discuss the anatomy of the forearm, the bones and the muscles. Let's go. First, the view. We have the anterior view and the posterior view of the forearm. This line here indicates pelvis. We are looking at this figure from the front. The palm is facing us. This is bicep, and this is the same arm from behind, as we can see by this line indicating the pelvis. It moved to the left, and by the elbow. Now we have the anterior compartment of the forearm. Here it is, and the muscles of the anterior compartment are the flexor muscles. They do some flexing. Now the muscles of the posterior compartment are the extensor muscles. We will start with the flexor muscles. Here they are. And first we have to review the bones. We already discussed the main bones of the forearm in the lecture about the arm and forearm. But let's review anyway. So we have the humerus bone here, then we have the radius bone and the ulna. Now ulna and radius are connected together with the interosseous membrane, and the humerus bone has epicondyles at its sides. The medial epicondyle, which faces inwards towards the figure, is where the flexors are originating from. And then we have the lateral epicondyle of the humerus. This is where the extensors are attached. We will be hearing those names many times today. Let's go. The muscles of the anterior compartment can be divided into three layers: deep, intermediate, and superficial. We'll start with the superficial. The first muscle of the superficial layer is palmaris longus. So, longus means long, which usually means that it has a long tendon, and the palmaris, well, means palm, and we can see that it goes towards the palm, and then it connects to this fascia called palmar aponeurosis. So what this muscle does is bend the wrist, pull the palm inwards. Insertion point is the medial epicondyle of the humerus, and then it connects to the palmar aponeurosis. Next, we have flexor carpi ulnaris. Again, carpi meaning wrist, and ulnaris means that it works from the side of the ulna. Already we can guess that we will have radialis muscle. And indeed, we have. So its origin point is the medial epicondyle of the humerus, and it's inserted to the pisiform bone. It's this bone directly before the fifth metacarpal. It is also inserted to the fifth metacarpal bone base. This one flexes the hand, pulls the wrist on the side of the ulna. And then we have the flexor carpi radialis, which does the same thing but on the side of the radius. Its origin point is again medial epicondyle of the humerus, and its insertion points are bases of the metacarpal bones 2 and 3. So, if flexor carpi ulnaris moved it a little bit sideways here, then flexor carpi radialis makes the antagonistic movement. Then we have pronator teres. Its origin point is again the medial epicondyle of the humerus, and it's inserted on the lateral surface of the radius, So we can see diagonal movement here. It doesn't go towards the lateral epicondyle, it goes towards medial. It's pretty easy to imagine this movement, so if this muscle were to contract, it will pull the radius bone and force it to go around the ulna, making the pronation. Next, we go deeper. Intermediate layer consists of Flexor digitorum superficialis. So, digitorum means fingers, superficialis means superficial. Its origin points, there are three of those. The medial epicondyle, again. Then, it's also attached to the ulna and to the proximal half of anterior border of radius. And its insertion points, it's the sides of middle phalanges. So as you can see, it splits in the beginning of the middle phalange. And it does so that the flexor digitorum profundus tendon, this one, could go towards the distal phalanges. What we have here is that this muscle flexes the fingers, but only up to this point. And this one, the flexor digitorum profundus, which means the deep flexor of the digits, pulls the distal phalanges. Its origin point is again anterior and medial surfaces of ulna, and its insertion points are the distal phalanges. Other muscle of the deep layer is the flexor pollicis longus. So longus means long again, which means that it has a long tendon, and pollicis means thumb, so it's the flexor of the thumb. And indeed, we can see its tendon go towards the distal phalange of the thumb. And the origin point is the medial epicondyle of the humerus. And then we have pronator quadratus, another pronator muscle, which originates from distal end of anterior surface of the ulna, here, and goes towards the end of anterior surface of the radius. It also pronates the arm. Now, we went through muscles of the anterior view. Let's discuss the posterior view. It has deep layer and a superficial layer of muscles. We will start from the superficial layer, but first, bones. We have supracondylar ridge of the humerus. This one is the lateral one, and we need it because it's the attachment points of some muscles. First, brachioradialis. So, this root means arm. It connects to the arm, and we can see that it goes up, and then goes to the radius bone, ends at the styloid process of radius, while originating from the lateral supracondylar ridge. It flexes the forearm, especially when it's pronated, so it assists in flexing. Next we have extensor carpaltheralis longus, and we had the flexor carpaltheralis. This is the opposite. This one is an extensor of the wrist of the radius bone, long one. Its origin point is the lateral supracondylar ridge of the humerus, so near the brachioradialis, just below it, and it goes to the base of the second metacarpal bone here. It extends and abducts the wrist, meaning it moves it sideways in the direction of the thumb. Now we have extensor carpaltheralis brevis. So brevis means short in Latin, So we have long one and short one. It is indeed shorter, and it originates from the lateral epicondyle as well, and then goes towards the base of the second and third metacarpal bones. And it also extends the wrist. Then we have extensor digitorum. So we have flexor digitorum on the anterior side and the extensor on the posterior, which makes sense, otherwise we wouldn't be able to make our fingers return to initial position. Now its origin point is again lateral epicondyle, and it goes towards extensor expansions of digits 2 to 5. In this diagram we can see that the tendons are interconnected, and they also split on the sides in the base of the middle phalange, and it extends the fingers. Then we have extensor digiti minimi. So digiti, again fingers, minimi the smallest. It's an extensor of the little finger. Its origin point is the same, and inserts at the dorsal hood of the little finger, and it extends the little finger again. Then we have extensor carpi ulnaris. So we had extensor carpaltheralis, and this is the opposite muscle, which originates at the same point, just below, and inserts on the medial surface of the base of the fifth metacarpal. It extends and attacks the wrist, so it moves it sideways here in the direction of the little finger. This little muscle is the anconeus muscle, which originates at the lateral epicondyle and inserts at the posterior surface of the ulna, and it extends the forearm. Then we have the deep layer. This bulky muscle here is supinator. It has two heads. One attached to the lateral epicondyle here, and the other goes to the ulna bone. And then it inserts on the radius laterally, so on the outside. And it does supination, so it helps revert the arc and make the bones parallel again. Just below this muscle we have extensor pollicis brevis. Again, pollicis means thumb, brevis means short, so it's the short extensor of the thumb. Its origin point is the posterior surface of the radius, the inside, and it goes towards the base of the proximal phalanx here. It extends the thumb. And this here is the abductor pollicis longus. It goes from the posterior surface of the ulna. It's also connected here on the radius, and it goes to the base of the first metacarpal, so down here, and it abducts the thumb. It pulls it sideways and in the direction of the palm. Then we have extensor indices. So this means index finger, and indeed it goes towards the main index finger and inserts at the middle phalanx. Its origin point is the posterior surface of the ulna here on the inside. And do you remember the extensor digitorum? These ones. So the extensor indices joins the insertion point of the extensor digitorum tendons, and it extends the index finger. And the last muscle, extensor pollicis longus. This one goes towards the distal phalanx of the thumb. Its origin point is the posterior surface of the ulna again, and it also extends the thumb, but this one pulls at the distal phalange, which allows for more precise movement, or rather for movement of the distal phalange. And that's it for the muscles of the forearm. Now this time I tried a new format, a new way of making content. I hope you like it. And if you do, please subscribe, press the like button, and leave a comment. Thanks for watching, and bye.